with that, we're ready to kick off. And just in terms of the agenda, I will open with a little bit of commentary on where we feel the sector is heading with stakeholder feedback, what the trends are, and where we might need to improve. We'll then talk about Edurio Unlimited, which is our new attempt to provide more to the sector. We'll then talk about some of the practicalities and some of the aspects that we'll be offering to the sector from September, and hear from a couple of people who've been trialing the early trial version of it to share their perspectives on the direction that we're heading it. And at the end, we'll have time for your questions, and we'll be attempting to give answers to those. So if this works for everybody, let's jump in with the broad theme that we've been that we strongly believe at Edurio is that we need to get better at how stakeholder voice is done across the sector, and I mean England in general, whether that's trusts or schools. We know that a lot is being done, and stakeholder voice. So we worked with the Confederation of School Trusts, and we asked them. We run the biggest CEO survey in the country, and 99% of trusts gather staff voice and parent and pupil voice, whether that's directly centrally or through the schools. And so we know that stakeholder feedback is something that the sector is taking seriously and is doing a lot of work, putting a lot of effort, putting a lot of hours, put a lot of their resource in gathering. But from what we've seen and from the data that we've analyzed, the impact could be more. And so when we've asked staff members, how often do you see that your feedback to the leadership team has an impact? Only a third say that they see the impact. And actually, seeing that one's feedback has an impact is the closest correlating factor with staff decisions to stay in the trust or the school, and their overall well-being. So we know that this is really important for staff members, but we see that all the work that trusts are doing doesn't always translate into staff members feeling that they've been heard and listened to. It's very similar with parents, where 36% say that their feedback to the school has an impact always or most of the time. And similarly with pupils, 37% say that they feel their opinion is valued in their school. So while there are some positive elements there, the picture is quite mixed, where some feel like they're being heard, but the majority actually don't, and that is a challenge for us to solve as a sector. And I think quite an important element is that a lot of it is how we use feedback and how we communicate about feedback. So once we've done the data collection, what we do with it. Do we follow up? Do we gather more insights? Do we change the process? So that's the data that we've observed over the last few years, and something that we're trying to figure out. How do we address this? How do we help the sector not only collect data, but really work with it in a way that is visible to every pupil, every staff member, every parent. And this links with Edurio's vision and mission, where the reason why we operate is to put community at the core of how schools operate and have every school have a thriving community, whether that's in the parent community or the staff body, as well as the pupils. The way we've been trying to do that is giving school and trust leaders clarity on the things that matter most. So while there is a lot of data out there on assessment and attainment and attendance, it has been very difficult to gather insights and evidence around the software elements, well-being, support availability, etc. And so this has been the mission that has been driving our work for the last decade. We're turning 10 this summer, actually, in about a month's time. And so this has been part of our core and part of our approach. And so with that in mind, this is the context where we feel more needs to be done. And we feel that some schools are really nailing it, some schools need more support on that, but as a sector we can move further, and we want to do as much as possible to help you, the school and trust leaders, gain clarity on the things that you care about. One of the things that we introduced last year, and this is conceptualizing of essentially our approach to stakeholder feedback, is develop a set of resources available to anyone for free on the principles of good stakeholder feedback. So setting goals, carrying out surveys, analyzing the results, taking action. And this is something, seeing some of you on the call, I know you've seen these resources, but this is something that is available for any trust, any school in the UK or broader, whether you're a customer of Edurio or not, for free. This is our set of resources to help with elements of that. So this was our step one on, how do we translate the process that we believe is most helpful for you to listen and make sure that people know they're being listened to, into a set of tools, templates that can be embedded in your school and trust. And we've seen wonderful feedback on this. We've, in the conferences, we've seen the printed versions of this guide being picked up by a lot of people, and there's a lot of downloads from where this is available online, and a lot of visits to the web page where this is presented in interactive form. So we know that the approach is seen to be valuable, but we thought it is important that we move further and we think about our core product offering. So the surveys that Edurio runs and designs, and we thought, how can we provide more linkage with this cycle, and how can we ensure that the surveys that are available, the feedback process that is available through the Edurio platform, is as aligned as possible with your school improvement priorities, instead of generating just additional data, feeding into the needs that you as a trust or as schools in your trust have. Now, with that in mind, we are launching Edurio Unlimited. And so Edurio Unlimited is essentially the new product that we've been building and are still building and will be launching in September, which changes our service in a few very important ways. The first is, as the name suggests, we are offering a platform for the trusts and schools using Edurio, where instead of just doing one staff survey or one parent survey or one pupil survey, which has been our model till now, the trusts will be able to run unlimited surveys. So you will be able to do more within the year subscription, and that 1 year subscription will be essentially at a similar cost to the current model, which is a single survey model. So we've been building this whole additional functionality and this additional capacity for you to gather the data that you need as and when you need it, and do it without increasing the prices massively. A key element, so the second point of that, is this evidence on what you need when you need it. So currently, because of working with one survey and that being usually the one big annual thing, it takes a lot of work to craft what exactly the questions are, what we ask, and then that's the set of questions that you will ask for the year. With the new model with Edurio Unlimited, we will be offering a set of templates developed by our team matching the particular needs that you have, whether that is preparing for an OSTA inspection, or you're reviewing your leadership strategy, or your safeguarding policy. We have a set of templates that we have been developing, partially by adapting our existing content, partially by creating absolutely new surveys based on the feedback that many of you have given us on your priorities and your needs. But you will have that data and the ability to gather exactly the data you need when you need it. Whether that's a tiny 5-question pulse survey that you want to ask your staff every week, or if that's your big assessment on a new project or a new initiative. A key element then, this idea of flexibility and autonomy. As part of Edurio Unlimited, you will have the ability to for multiple team members within the trust or the school to have accounts and be able to create their own surveys. So we frequently talk about survey fatigue in the sector, and that is a reality. And we usually talk about survey fatigue as something that the respondents experience, but actually most of the fatigue we see is from the recipients of the feedback. So if you need to analyze feedback and cause change and make sure that change is visible, that takes a long time. And so we've seen cases where a survey is done, a diagnostic is done, and then next year we're starting to plan the next survey. But the team doesn't feel like, we've been able to cause all the change that we wanted. So are we going to be, gathering more data on the same thing? With the idea of Edurio Unlimited, the person leading on professional development will be able to run the survey specifically on that point. The person leading the new EDI strategy will be able to run stakeholder feedback to gather for that point. So the idea is we gather data, we help you gather data based on your priorities and your needs as and when you need it, and multiple people in the trust or the school are able to tap into that functionality. And finally, a key element of that is progress tracking. So while already Edurio offers the biggest national benchmarks for the surveys that we do for staff surveys, parents and pupils, an important element for this will be, as you gather feedback, tracking progress on whatever initiative you're having is critical. And with Edurio Unlimited, this will become easier than ever, because you're able to repeat elements of that survey or deep dive in particular piece as and when you need it. So that's a little bit about the core concepts of Edurio Unlimited. There will be 2 new products, and this is just to acknowledge the different needs of schools and trusts, but we will be offering Edurio Unlimited and Edurio HR, where the difference is Edurio Unlimited is all surveys, so pupil, parent, staff surveys for your trust, and also for the schools in that trust. So basically every school would get their account and be able to run unlimited surveys as and when they need to. Edurio HR is a more focused product specifically for the HR or people teams in a trust. So this is a trust use only and offers unlimited staff surveys, so covering our staff experience portfolio, but topics like EDI or leadership, or thinking about various other data sets that you can gather. And Iona will talk a little bit more soon about the survey topics that we are building. I think an important thing that I just want to say is we have been massively grateful to the large number of trusts that we've been able to learn from about their needs, and in general seeing the developments in the trust sector where school trusts are becoming more aligned in their vision, but also want to ensure the autonomy of the schools and ability to steer their own changes and their improvements. And I think also over the last decade, we've learned about the unique needs of every school in this country. And, there are a couple of examples on this call where there are very few schools quite like that, or trusts quite like that. And so we feel and we hope that this new world allows for that ability to tap into the big benchmarks and tap into the data sets, but also be extremely sensitive to the needs of the particular organizations. And yeah, this is something that we've learned a lot from the sector, but it is important that we keep learning as well. So, while part of this call is to share this exciting trajectory that we are working on and that we're really excited to bring to you and to others in the sector, but the other part is to say that we are absolutely committed to keep learning, and we know that there are more things that we need to develop, and there are some very, very exciting things that are currently in the back pocket of the project, and we'll keep developing over the next year. We are really keen that we do that in a way that we learn from you about your needs and are able to build the product to help you gain clarity on the things that matter most to you. So that's a little bit of context, and we'll be able to dive a little bit deeper later if you have any specific questions. But with that, I'll ask Iona to take over and share more about how we've been designing the surveys and any further detail on how this will work from September.
Thanks, Ernest, and hi, everyone. So yeah, as Ernest has said, we are drastically increasing the scope of our surveying capability, and I think there's a few different ways that we're doing that. And over the next few slides, I will talk you through some of those different things. Ernest has given you a bit of a taste of some of the topics that we'll cover, but I will talk about that in a bit more depth as well. But a little bit first around the process. So as Ernest mentioned, kind of the last few years where we've been operating within the sector, we've had kind of core survey set. And we've always worked really hard in the development of our surveys to ensure that they are the right balance of kind of rigorous and making kind of use of good research design and good practice, but also relevance to the sector. So we always work really, really closely in collaboration with subject matter experts. So the way that we've gone about building our kind of new survey suite is trying to do a sort of triangulation of us as kind of the survey design experts. We're there and we know how to write a good question. We know kind of what are the principles of good survey design. We also know that we aren't in schools every day and kind of spending as much time as other people within the sector are really kind of living and breathing what it's like. So the surveys have been designed with trust practitioners where possible, and with subject matter experts as well. So I'll do a brief jump to the next slide, but taking the example of SEND, we are designing a SEND survey that is being built by us in partnership with one of our trial customers to make sure that this is kind of relevant to kind of those who will be actioning the results of these surveys. And let's jump back to the previous slide. Thank you. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about how we're designing surveys. We're also trying to make sure that we are covering both the strategic and the operational. Ernest mentioned about how we have those kind of 3 big surveys that you take kind of once a year, and it's sort of a really big project, and it feeds into your business, into your kind of annual planning and your school improvement program and so on. And it's that kind of a strategic overview and that bird's eye view on what's going on within the school and within the trust. But we also need to be tracking the more kind of day-to-day things as well. So what we've got is kind of a mixture of that sort of high level overview, the temperature checks, and some more deep dive topics on kind of specific areas within the within what it means to run a school and to run a trust. And finally, we are looking to enable school level insights, trust level insights, and national insights. And what I mean by that is Ernest mentioned around the flexibility to make your own surveys. We want to make sure that you can build something that is really bespoke to you and to your needs, but where possible, look for comparisons elsewhere. So it's really, really important to know kind of how you are doing, but you can level up a little bit if you know how you're doing in comparison to something else. And that could be you last year, that could be other schools within your trust, or it could be the national picture. So we have built this kind of core set of surveys that will be focused around building those national benchmarks. We are going to be kind of recommending where possible that people use those questions because they will then kind of unlock that national insight as well. But we are making sure that there is the ability to do something that's really, really specific. If you're launching a new lunch menu and you want to get feedback on the specific things in that, we want to make sure that that's possible as well. Next slide, please, Ernest. And yes, you've had a brief glimpse of this, but in a little bit more detail, these are some of the topics that we are prioritising ahead of September when Edurio Unlimited launches more formally. We are expecting this list to evolve and to grow, but where I mentioned around those kind of professionally curated surveys, this is the kind of scope and the sort of key focus areas. So making sure we keep that kind of strategic experience side, and we have that for staff, pupils, and parents. If you're taking Edurio HR instead of Edurio Unlimited, then we have it for staff, but for Edurio Unlimited, it is for all three of the key stakeholder groups. But on top of that, we will have the ability to do kind of focused surveys on particular topics. So that might be staff wellbeing, and you might want to do kind of a weekly, half-termly, termly check-in where you just ask kind of how are you feeling today, or you might want to do something a little bit more in depth around what are the things that are leading to positive or negative wellbeing. Other areas like professional development, pupil behaviour, attendance and safety, SEND, EDI, and so on. And of course, if you are expecting Ofsted to come knocking, we want to make sure that you're able to be prepared for that. So we will be housing the Ofsted surveys with their benchmarks within our platform as well. I'll just briefly pause on these topics, and I'll note some of the ways in which you can run these surveys. So I mentioned a kind of a pulse survey where you check kind of how people are feeling today. Deep dives where you might go into kind of some more detail around the drivers. But there's also the option to look at this from a kind of 360 view. And if we zoom in on pupil behaviour or pupil attendance, we are obviously thinking here about the pupils. It's their behaviour, that is the subject matter. But we might want to hear from staff and parents as well about their feelings around pupil behaviour, the impact of pupil behaviour on other things as well. So all of this stuff is possible within the new kind of suite of surveys that we have. As Ernest mentioned, this is a really important part of this initiative is understanding more about what you guys need. And so we'll be working really closely. I think once we've really hit the ground running with the rollout of the new product, we'll start to see what other topics are kind of most pressing or kind of most widely needed, and this will be an opportunity for us to continuously add to it. By the way, if you have any already that you're thinking about, do feel free to drop it in the chat along with any of the questions that you have that we'll go through at the end. Ernest, next slide, please. And then just a last thing from me before I hand over to Molly and our two wonderful trial customers. is just a little bit about how it actually looks working with us. So we are massively increasing the ability to run surveys. We're massively increasing the autonomy that you have around that. So you can decide to launch a survey. You can launch a survey within your account yourself without need of kind of interacting with Edurio. We don't want you to only do that though. So we know that from our customers up until this point that the relationship that we have with them is really, really valuable, and the guidance that we give and that kind of challenge that we give to our customers if they are planning on asking particular questions. We are there to kind of guide and to challenge and to act as a partner in the research and in the surveying. That won't be going away. It might be changing a little bit because there'll be more things that you're doing on your own, but it is something that will be a core component of Edurio Unlimited as we go forwards. We're also, as Ernest has already shared, with the stakeholder feedback guidance that we have made publicly available. It is really important to us that people do surveys well. If you're working with us or you're not working with us, we want to make sure that you are doing surveys well, because we know how important that it is to give to capture feedback and for people to feel like they're being heard. So throughout the kind of journey with Edurio, as well as the kind of free resources that we make available to everybody, there are kind of training sessions, ways to think about how to kind of take action, how to think about analysis and so on. We are there to make sure that to try and help you to do stakeholder feedback well. You'll also have access to nationally benchmarked data. As I mentioned on the previous slide, there is a whole bunch of stuff that is our surveys that we have created for the product. With those should have a national benchmark attached to them. It's worth noting that at the beginning, those benchmarks might be a bit smaller and they might need some time to grow, but particularly for the experience surveys, the ones that we've been running for years, we already have really, really large benchmarks in the region of 50,000 for staff, in the region of 100,000 for pupils per year. So that we want to make sure is here to stay. We recently ran a survey and over 90% of our customers rated the benchmarks as a top 3 reason a top 3 benefit of Edurio. So we want to make sure that that's kind of still there in the future as well. And finally, we are in a relatively unique position at Edurio because we know who's the best in the country at different things. Our data sets and our nationally benchmarked data tells us who are the kind of really standout schools, really standout trusts when it comes to the different things that are covered by our surveys. We will be increasingly championing those schools and those trusts, and increasingly looking to learn from them and sharing that wisdom across the Edurio network. So anyone who kind of finds that they're not doing so well in a particular area from the survey, we can go and get that information from the people who are really doing well, and we can start sharing that across the network, so we can learn from each other and all kind of improve as a sector. I think that's it from me. I'll pass over to Molly now to have a chat with our trial customers.
Thanks, Iona. Hi, everybody. So yeah, we've heard from Ernest and Iona kind of the benefits and the need for Edurio Unlimited. Over the last 6 months, we've been trialing Edurio Unlimited with some of our customers, and we are joined by 2 of them today. Ernest, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce Lisa and Lydia. They're just going to talk for a few minutes about their experience with Edurio Unlimited so far, and I've got some questions for them as we go through. So Lisa, would you like to kick off?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Thompson, Liberty Academy Trust. We are a small trust of special schools, but our schools are very geographically spread. So our main sort of contact really with kind of pupils and staff is through our kind of stakeholder feedback surveys. And we've used Edurio in terms of the 3 standard surveys for a couple of years. So and our approach to that has always been kind of the follow-up to those surveys throughout the year, doing things like the pulse surveys, the spot checks on projects and things that we've been targeting following the feedback. So what was really great when I sort of asked to be part of the beta testing for the Edurio Unlimited is just that ability to do those pulse surveys and be able to benchmark my data within the platform and be able to benchmark it nationally rather than having to tinker away in a spreadsheet and do all of that analytics myself. So that's been great. But also, again, we've done some other surveys. So we're launching a digital literacy survey. We've done some surveys on specific projects that our trust have been working on. And another survey that we're working on at the moment is around follow-up to exams with our students. And with building those sort of more bespoke surveys, it's been great to work with Edurio, as they've said, in terms of the support on how I've built those surveys, how I ask those questions. So that kind of knowledge and support in making sure that I'm asking good quality questions that's going to get me good quality feedback. But then, taking the stress away in terms of all of that then being analysed within the system, held within the system. It's this also it's kind of a standard way for our pupils and our staff and our parents to see surveys, so everything looks the same, all the benefits with that. But then I know that as I try and follow up on those surveys in the future, I can just repeat them, and again I'll be able to benchmark against myself. And I understand that as they build their templates and maybe utilise my surveys with other trusts, I can then start to benchmark myself against other trusts. So in terms of my experience so far, it's just been incredibly helpful. It's made the process of surveying a lot easier. The building of the surveys within the platform is really straightforward, very simple. So I can't really speak highly enough of. It's been a really good experience, and so yeah, that's me. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And Lydia, do you want to share some of your reflections?
Yeah, of course. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Lydia. As Molly said, I work for the Manchester Hospital School. And to just give you a bit of context about our school and why we're using Edurio. So we provide education for children and young people who can't attend their usual school because of their medical and mental health needs. So we operate across 7 sites, and this includes teaching in 5 hospital settings. So this sort of unique nature of our school poses quite a lot of challenges for us as we capture stakeholder feedback to shape school improvement. So just some examples, what we want to ask a pupil will change quite considerably depending on their age and which one of our sites that they're being taught at. So for example, if we're undertaking a wellbeing survey, if you're a year 11 pupil admitted to a tier 4 mental health inpatient unit, we'll want to ask you a very different question to one of our early years pupils who's receiving proton beam therapy for their cancer. Or another example of our challenges is that our pupil numbers are changing daily depending on who's been admitted and discharged from hospital. And once we've got them, we don't know how long we've got them for. So capturing meaningful feedback for our pupils and parents is really difficult, and that's where Edurio Unlimited comes in for us. So we'd been sent a Edurio report and we were really impressed with what we'd seen. We really wanted to incorporate that sort of evidence-based practice across our school. But some of those challenges, as I mentioned earlier, meant that proved quite difficult for us. So when Edurio Unlimited was launched, we jumped at the opportunity to be involved, as this new product enables us to be flexible and give us what we need for our unique setting, so that we can make surveys that are bespoke to our sites and to our pupils. So our executive deputy head has been mapping out an overview plan for the surveys in line with our school improvement plan for the year. And our plan is to run a pupil survey on a different aspect of school life every half term. At that point, we get a senior or middle leader who's identified to lead on the survey. And as the school data manager, I manage the survey development and build in liaison with Edurio and the identified lead at school. So we might begin with an Edurio template that's there, and alter it to the needs of our school and alter questions for the settings so that we can still retrain the benchmarks, or we might write some surveys from scratch. And then once the survey's closed, the lead that's been identified will examine and analyse results and feed back to the senior leadership. So that live tracking of results is really useful for us in the platform. That lead can then see what's going on, see how many people are responding, prompt different site leads to push respondents in the different settings. That's been really useful. Since we began using it this calendar year, we've run 3 surveys. In spring 1, we ran a pupil safeguarding survey, which we use the Edurio template as the basis for this, and we work closely with the team to adapt it to the bespoke needs of our school. In spring 2, we ran a pupil reading survey, which we created from scratch with the team. It was really useful to have the development team's input on that, and helping us to create questions that really captured quality data. And in summer 1, we ran a pupil personal development survey, which we also created from scratch. So it's just been a really brilliant product for us. We've loved the flexibility and autonomy it gives us. It's addressed the challenges that we have in adapting surveys to be suitable for our unique pupils. And the service from the team has been wonderful. They're very attentive. They take time to understand our school and the needs we have. And as you can imagine, creating a survey from scratch, we need their help quite a bit. So been in regular contact, and they've been really quick at responding to everything we needed so that we've been able to turn the surveys around. So yeah, like Lisa, I just really commend them to you.
Thanks, guys. And I guess, you know, working with us over the past few months with Edurio Unlimited, it has been a trial experience. It's been beta, so we've been trying to kind of build it out. We've had lots of questions for you, and it's definitely been a two-way relationship, and hopefully that, you know, that continues. I guess a kind of final question from me, looking ahead to kind of the new academic year and the kind of, as Iona and Ernest talked about, the full launch of Edurio Unlimited, where do you see that going for you once like the functionality is there? What are you most excited about? How are you thinking about embedding Edurio Unlimited into your organisations more longer term? Lisa?
Let me go first. As I mentioned, I like we're going to have a timeline for surveys. You talked before about survey fatigue, and I think it is both ways. So I just want to make sure within one platform, what really helps us with working with the schools is we can all plan out when we do the surveys. We can also share content. So I think that's really important that we work with our schools moving forward. It's very much been kind of my sort of area, but as you mentioned, that ability for me to share that load and make sure that the people who need to action those responses have the ability to build those surveys and target the way that they want. So that'll be a focus for us on September, is getting other people involved in using Edurio Unlimited. But also, as I said, for me, as we start to build up those bank of surveys, we'll be able to have those benchmarks internally moving forward. And I understand, I think there was just a chat question there that I saw pop up about, you know, are we giving up national benchmarks? But I've been kind of assured that as more people start to use Edurio Unlimited, those benchmarks will build on other sorts of key questions, and as we'll all start to share the surveys. So from my perspective, I just think there'll just be more opportunity to benchmark myself against other similar schools and trusts, and that's really key for us. So yeah, that's kind of how I see we'll be using it. But we will have a timeline and more structure to our surveys and be able to spread them out much better, and also track, you know, what the schools are doing by seeing it all within the same platform.
Thanks, Lisa.
I think it's similar for us. It will just be building on what we've begun this year, being able to see as we get more data, as we roll out more surveys. And like I said, our turnover of pupils is high, given that they're coming in and out. So being able to run the same survey again in a year's time and seeing, are we getting different results? Has there been any impact from the changes we've implemented as a result of the feedback? Will be really significant as we move on with the product. And we're really looking forward to more templates being available in the system. I think we've been doing a lot of development on sort of curriculum templates and things like that as we develop our curriculum. So just as that gets broader, we'll be looking forward to using more of, because they're such quality templates, that will be really helpful to us.
Thank you both. Fabulous. So I'll hand back over to Ernest for Q&A.
Thank you, Molly, for that. And yeah, thank you so much to all our trial customers. We've been learning so much from you in the process, and yeah, you know, really appreciate the learnings that we've been able to have. This is now the time where anyone's welcome to add any questions you have through either the chat or the Q&A function. And I'll just talk a little bit more about the question from Helen about creating bespoke surveys versus benchmarked surveys. So currently, obviously, the current process has been a trial process, so the survey library is being developed. And so the way we've approached it with our trial partners is, if there is a survey that they are keen to develop and we feel will be useful for the wider sector, then we are looking to work together and essentially help build that survey in a way that addresses their needs, but also would address the wider sector's needs and interests. And so we are consulting with quite a lot of our customers and other partners and other organizations in the process. So some of the surveys that are, I guess, semi-bespoke, because they are developed collaboratively between us and the trust that is a current user of Edurio Unlimited in the trial form, will be then rolled out to be available to everybody. However, some will be, you know, truly bespoke. If you have your particular trust's need or school's need that will be unique to you, then we won't attempt to generalize it, because the more specific the survey is, the more kind of accurate and insightful that data is. But in that case, you do then lose the benchmarking. And I expect over the next year for that to continue, for us to work together with our partners, with our customers, and for us to be co-designing surveys throughout that process. An important element is that from September, we will have essentially every trust that is a user of Edurio will be carried over to Edurio Unlimited. So at the point where they renew, they will start using Edurio Unlimited, and so the next year is going to be the big shift where a lot more trusts and schools are using a lot wider set of questions, and that will allow us to build those benchmark data sets and then introduce those. We will also be looking to run waves. So for example, when we launch a new survey, we will announce that to our customers that this is now available for them, and then in that process, we will help build those benchmarks, but then also make sure that everybody accesses them as soon as possible after the survey's done. So there are a couple of questions meanwhile added via Q&A, and I'll take those at a time, and feel free to add any other ones if you wish. So the first question is, how many surveys will have the national benchmarks available? And this is a process that is being sort of somewhat addressed that on the previous question. Essentially, we are looking to have about 50 dedicated templates available from September. So this covers pupils, parents, staff members, so quite a broad base. And currently, we have a lot of these big benchmarks for our national data sets linked to the diagnostic surveys, as well as safeguarding surveys, EDI. So there's a set that already have the benchmarks. And for the others, we will be looking to develop them over the next year. And, you know, as we design surveys that are of relevance to you, for our customer base, if they choose to run them, then we will start introducing those survey sets. So we expect every template to have a benchmark within the first year or so, when enough trusts or schools have used it. But we also expect there will be some surveys that are less relevant than we thought they would be, and so this will be still a learning experience for us and the sector. And while there will be the big surveys with the massive data sets, the others will have a more nuanced picture where the benchmarks will evolve throughout the year.
Ernest, if I can just add to that, I think one thing worth noting is the ability to tailor the templates. So I think the actual answer to the question is unlimited, because you could take part of our survey, add your own questions to it, create a new survey which has some areas which are have benchmarked things and some areas which don't. So I think actually the number, and you can kind of build from different parts of a survey to create a new survey that better suits your needs. If you're thinking, I mentioned behavior and attendance as two separate surveys. If you want to run a behavior and attendance survey, you might pick some things from one, some things from another. So within that kind of flexible survey builder part of it, actually there is a good chance that you could have a survey that has really big benchmarks from our kind of existing national suite of questions, some sets which are from the kind of new, some questions which are from the kind of new territory where they have slightly smaller ones but growing over time, and some questions which are fully bespoke to your needs, so you'll have a bit of a mix between them. I think that it actually works quite nicely as kind of an anchor. If you have some questions which are nationally benchmarked and some which are not, you can sort of see how for those ones how you're getting on against the national picture, and that might give you an indication about kind of with the ones that have a smaller benchmark, depending on how sort of related the questions are, how you might be doing there as well.
Thank you, Ariana, for that. A couple of other questions. So how many users can the trust have? Thank you for that. And as the name suggests, Edurio Unlimited allows for unlimited number of users. And that, we hope, is actually the big shift with Edurio Unlimited, where instead of all surveys being centrally managed by one person in the school or the trust, we hope that the range of users who have varying needs and different priorities and projects that they're working on, they're able to tap into the feedback that is relevant to them via the system. And so the answer is that anyone in the trust or the schools who should have access to that survey creation functionality will be able to have an Edurio account. And there's a partially linked question. So will schools also have unlimited? Yes, absolutely. So Edurio Unlimited can be used by a single school, whether that school is part of a trust or a standalone school, maintained or independent, or a single academy trust. Yeah, so that will allow them to run unlimited surveys as and when needed. So we have the next question on: can survey data be drawn out centrally into Power BI to use with other trust level data? Thank you, Mark, for that. Survey data experts are a sensitive topic because of the anonymity promise that surveys have. So when you if you ask 3 demographic questions in a school or a trust, let's say your age, gender, and whether that's ethnic background or role for a staff member, it can become very easy from the number of schools to identify concrete respondents. And so we practice a lot of cautious with providing data exports. With the professionally managed surveys that we do, and those, so basically they're the surveys that are managed by Edurio. Those are not disappearing. So within Edurio Unlimited, we still allow for like you've worked with us till now, which is the kind of the single big survey. The trust or the school is still able to run a professionally managed survey per stakeholder group with us, and the Edurio Unlimited part comes on top. So for those, we are able to provide a partial export that is anonymized and ensure that the demographics aren't carried. But if the survey is anonymous, then we do not provide a full export, whether that's automated or as an export as an XLS file. In the future, this is something that we see as one of those elements that we will work on over the coming years. We do appreciate that, trusts have data warehouses or data pools, and more need to link this data with other data sets. The real important element is that it is clearly communicated to the respondents how their data is going to be used. So we do foresee further down the line an option to gather data to link into with other data sets, provided that this is clearly communicated to the respondents, and we do have ideas on the product level how to facilitate that. So the short answer is not this year, but in the future we'd love to work with you to understand the need better, and make sure that those exports or integrations are available as and when needed. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions at this point? Well, in that case, a big thanks to everybody for being part of this workshop. Thanks to Iona and Molly for sharing a bit of their work, and thanks to Liz and Lydia for sharing your reflections, and a massive thanks for being part of our initial set of 9 trial partners that we've been very, very lucky to learn from. So with that, if you do have any other questions, please don't hesitate to email us or let us know in any other way, and look forward to seeing how Edurio Unlimited develops over the next year. Thank you.